Hey. Hey. Hey, everyone. Welcome to OC5. All right, so last year, we talked about how our long-term goal was to help get 1 billion people into virtual reality. So let's start off by checking in on how that's going. All right. Now, we have the saying at Facebook that the journey is 1% finished. And in this case, maybe not even quite. But I'm confident that we're going to get there, because just imagine all the ways that being able to feel really present with someone, no matter where they are, imagine all the ways that that's going to change how we communicate, how we game, how we work, almost every category of what we do. Now, I bet that almost every person here has had the experience of introducing someone to VR for the first time. And you've seen how people just can't stop smiling. Right? They're giddy. They don't want to come out. You know, it's clear that this sensation of presence is a new kind of digital experience. And we're getting closer and closer to being able to easily step between physical and virtual worlds. So for me, this isn't a question of whether we're going to get there, it's how. Right? What is the exact roadmap? What are the exact next steps we need to take on the path there? And now, I think that we all need to focus on solving two important problems next. So the first is that we need to build an ecosystem that's self-sustaining, right? Where developers can afford to, well, and we're back. All right, wonderful. The first problem we need to solve is getting the microphone to work. Assuming we can do that, then we are on to the second problem, which is building an ecosystem which is self-sustaining, where developers can afford to build high-quality experiences because there are enough people who are using these platforms who are going to pay for the content. Now, I guess the second or the third problem, if you will, is that we need to build a product with a form factor that is comfortable, that you can take with you anywhere you go, and that is powerful enough to run any experience we want. So, all right, let's go talk about the ecosystem first. All right, so right now, there are thousands of titles for VR. There's everything from art to social VR to live music. It's a broad enough range, so if you have a cousin who's into dinosaurs, or a grandma who's into strategy games, who is an awesome grandma, then there's going to be something for them in VR. But right now, a lot of this is indie development. Right? A lot of it is still funded directly by us to help get the ecosystem started. Some of it is big studios exploring, even if it's not profitable yet. So the big question is, what is it going to take for it to be profitable for all developers to build these kind of large efforts for VR? And to get to that level, we think that we need about 10 million people on a given platform. Right? So that's the threshold where the number of people using and buying VR content makes it sustainable and profitable for all kinds of developers. And once we get to and cross this threshold, then we think that the content and the ecosystem are just going to explode. Now, importantly, this threshold isn't 10 million people across all different types of VR. Because if you build a game for Rift, it doesn't necessarily work on Go or PlayStation. Right? So we need 10 million people on each platform. So with this in mind, we're now directing our roadmap so that future versions of the products that we build are going to be compatible with the current ones. So when we release the new version of Rift, which isn't today, by the way, all of the content that works for Rift is going to work on that next version too. So this means that every generation of what we build is going to build towards this threshold. And once we get there, we think that the content and the activity in the ecosystem is just going to really take off. All right. Now, in addition to the ecosystem, we also have to make progress on the form factor. Now, if we're building products that are going to run similar content across generations, then that means that we need to lock in certain key decisions now, like what the input is going to be. Right? So that way those things can be consistent over time. So we need to ask, what are the key attributes of the ideal VR system that we want to lock in now? We've talked to a lot of people in the community. People use Rift and Go and all the other VR devices, and we think that there are a few key qualities that any VR system that gets to scale needs to have. So first, it needs to be standalone. It's that way there are no wires. Yeah. That way there are no wires that are going to break your feeling of presence or anything like that, and you're going to be able to take it with you. All right, second, it's got to support hands, right? Because that's going to be how we interact with people and objects in a natural way in virtual reality. And third, it has to offer 6 degrees of freedom. So you could not just walk around or look around, but you can also walk around and move through a virtual space just like you would in a physical one. All right, so if we can bring these 3 qualities together into one product, then we think that that is the foundation for the ideal form factor for VR. So we've been working on this for years now. And at Connect, for the past couple of years, you've heard me talk about Project Santa Cruz. And today, we have some news for you. I am excited to announce Oculus Quest. It is shipping in the spring, and it is going to cost $399. This is it. This is the all-in-one VR experience that we have been waiting for. It's wireless, it's got hand presence, 6 degrees of freedom, and it runs Rift-quality experiences. Full inside-out tracking, full freedom to move around, no cables, no external sensors, just really good positional tracking. It's got adjustable fit, so it's comfortable to wear with glasses. It's got built-in 360 audio, even better than what we shipped with Oculus Go, even without headphones. And it is shipping with touch controllers to deliver the same hand presence that you get with Rift. Now, I want to take a moment to thank all of you who gave us feedback on this, because you might know that when we started working on this, we were actually planning on building a different input device. But because we got so much feedback that the input should be the same as Rift, we went with touch. And now we're doing even more work to bring these ecosystems closer together over time. And by shipping with touch, we're going to be able to work with all of you to bring a lot of the most successful games from Rift to Oculus Quest, including Robo Recall, The Climb, and Moss, just to name a few. And we're going to have more than 50 titles available for Oculus Quest at launch. All right, let's take a closer look.
Oculus Quest is an all-in-one VR system. It's just you and your hands, completely free and immersed. With 6 degrees of freedom, state-of-the-art optics, and built-in audio. You can forget about wires, PCs, and phones. Oculus Quest is ready to play when you are. The headset relies on 4 ultra-wide-angle sensors to map your environment as you navigate through it. And with Oculus Insight tracking, every move you make in the real world translates right into the game you're playing. Combine that with Oculus Touch controllers, and the game is at your fingertips. So when you grab, swing, or cast a spell, you'll feel the power of every gesture. The next level of VR gaming is finally here. Introducing Oculus Quest.
So this thing is, it's just wonderful. All right, you're all going to be able to try it out right here at OC5. And some of the experiences are just really amazing. You can play tennis. We have a tennis court set up. So you have one person on one side on the tennis court playing and another person on the other side in the living room. And you can see how the experience just scales up and down nicely with the amount of space that you have available. You see the ball coming, you run towards it. You see your hand, you hit it, you get haptic feedback. It's awesome. You're going to be able to play dead and buried out there. It's basically like playing paintball. You get to run around with your friends, ducking behind virtual objects, except no physical welts. So that's better. All right, so this is all set up, and you're going to be able to try all this stuff out right after this keynote today. Now, with Oculus Quest, we will complete our first generation of VR products. So there's Oculus Go, the most affordable way to experience VR for the first time. There's Oculus Quest, the all-in-one VR experience that we've been waiting for. And there's Rift, for experiences that need a PC to push the edge of what's possible. So from here, we're going to make some big leaps in both tech and content for the future generations of each of these products. We're going to build each of these as platforms, so everything that you build for them today is going to work on future versions of these devices. This is all still early, but this is the basic roadmap. This is what we need to do for VR to succeed and to get to the future that we all want. Now, the next few years are going to be a really exciting time for VR and AR, and I'm really excited to see what we all build together. So as always, thank you all for coming out to OC5. It is great to be on this journey with you. And now I want to introduce Boz, someone I've worked with for more than 10 years, who's been a part of building many of Facebook's most important products, and who I often ask to take on the most important long-term areas that we have. And he's now leading all of our efforts in AR and VR. So I'm going to hand it off to Boz to share more about our vision. All right, thanks, and enjoy OC5.
Just under a year ago, I was sitting in the audience, right over there, attending my very first Oculus Connect. I had just joined the AR/VR organization. And I got to hear Mark talk about Dorothy and Echo Arena and the power of virtual reality. About 2/3 of the way through his talk, this flashed on the stage. And I just thought how odd it was that Mark had never mentioned this to me in any of our conversations before I joined. I guess it just slipped his mind. It's a true story. But I've been at Facebook a long time, so I'm not unfamiliar with goals like these. But we've never faced anything like we're facing in AR and VR right now. We are in the early stages of a tremendous platform shift, bigger than the shift from web to mobile. In fact, it's not just a shift in the computing platform. It's a shift in how humans will connect. Let's put that shift in historical perspective. The history of technology is nothing if not the history of humans trying to connect. We domesticated horses and bridled them. We built trains across the wilderness. We laid thousands of miles of copper under land and sea. We've invented cars. We flew planes across continents and oceans, all to connect. Facebook itself is nothing if not a small step forward in that grand historical march. Yet with all of our technological progress, we still have tremendous limitations on our ability to connect. And the biggest limitation is physics. There is simply no substitute yet for being there. Physical distance becomes emotional distance. And what we've come to understand is that distance isn't always measured in miles. Sometimes it's measured in missed moments. Now, nothing has been better at breaking down the barriers imposed on us by physics than the phone. The phone is the greatest computing device ever invented, sitting atop centuries of human progress. But despite all its greatness, all that it's given us, all that it offers, we are approaching the limit of what the phone can do for us. Think about the last time you did a video call with your grandmother, your college roommate. I mean, first of all, video calls are like an event. You got to plan it. You got to schedule it. You got to sacrifice your left arm to get a decent angle once you're on the call. And if you're with somebody physically with you, they better stand behind you or they're not on the call. Now, this is better than nothing, but it's not rich in the way that we know human connection can be rich. You know, we're using these tiny windows to reach out and connect with people, and as a society, we've just maxed out whatever bandwidth these little devices can provide. We can do better. So what would it take to feel transported to another place? The tools that we're building in AR and VR have the opportunity to answer this. You know, we see the opportunity in video presence, where we think there's a chance to build a platform for the home that enhances people's ability to connect. We'll talk more about that in the coming weeks. But of course, we also can be transported and feel present in virtual reality. This map shows the 2.5 billion people that Facebook connects. This is what those connections look like on Oculus today. We have a little bit of work to do. But we are starting to realize the promise. It's not the number of connections that matters most. It's the depth of those connections. That's what VR and AR will be able to do better than anything that has come before. That's why Facebook is so committed to this work. VR is often depicted as isolationist or escapist. And that dystopian future is a real possibility if we don't put people first, if we don't put human connection first. Today, the focus may be more on content, and that's great. But in the fullness of time, I expect virtual reality to be a platform primarily centered around human connection. Looking 5 or 10 years down the road, this could have really profound impacts on the fabric of society. You know, people often think of virtual reality as a competitor to telepresence. It's not. It's a competitor to real estate. Cities and roads are occupied by the space companies need to connect their employees face to face. Shockingly, this is not a misappropriation of our precious time and space, because that is how valuable it is for humans to connect in person. If you could enable even a fraction of that to be done remotely through virtual reality, you will have done tremendous good in allowing society to reallocate some of its most limited resources. Not only would people be able to connect with the people that matter most to them in real life because they're commuting less, but this would also enable access to jobs to those who today have limited opportunity due to geography. This potential to transform the global landscape is incredible, and it's the reason that we're prioritizing the investments to deliver this technology in a human-centric way. You're all already familiar with Oculus Rift, which has been powering great VR experiences with PCs for years now. Earlier this year, we announced Oculus Go, which is focused on entertainment and social use cases and is by far the most affordable way to get into virtual reality. And as you've just heard Mark announce, we are excited next year to launch Oculus Quest. But you're not stopping there. We're also going to work on future technology that will unlock even more. Instead of taking the real world and overlaying virtual objects on top of it, like we plan to do with augmented reality, you can also take real-world objects and integrate them into virtual reality so that everything can interact. This is super important for unlocking future use cases like reimagining how we collaborate at work. What you're about to see is actual footage from a prototype of mixed reality shot with the Oculus Quest. So as I put my headset on, we can see the virtual world overlaid on a very, very crude reconstruction of the real world behind it. And here I'm watching a video of my son and I playing with iron powder and a birthday candle for Science Saturday, when I get a notification that my wife sent me some photos on Messenger. And I can go in and browse and pick out a few favorites before it's time to get back to work. The top of my to-do list is to work on my OC5 script, so I better get to it. You can see that I'm able to access my real-life keyboard and desk in front of me while enjoying the boundless space that virtual reality affords me. And then I get a notification that tells me I've got a meeting. My speech will have to wait. I make my way into a virtual room somewhere in the metaverse that allows me to work alongside my team in a persistent environment. Someday there will be people in here, lots of people, imagine it. And here comes my colleague now. Now this is yeah, thank you. This is a very, very crude reconstruction of the real world behind it. And here I'm watching a video of my son and I playing with iron powder and a birthday candle for Science Saturday, when I get a notification that my wife sent me some photos on Messenger. And I can go in and browse and pick out a few favorites before it's time to get back to work. The top of my to-do list is to work on my OC5 script. And here I'm watching a video of my son and I playing with iron powder and a birthday candle for Science Saturday, when I get a notification that my wife sent me some photos on Messenger. And here I'm watching a video of my son and I playing with iron powder and a birthday candle for Science Saturday, when I get a notification that my wife sent me some photos on Messenger. And here I'm watching a video of my son and I playing with iron powder and a birthday candle for Science Saturday, when I get a notification that my wife sent me some photos on Messenger. And here I'm watching a video of my son and I playing with iron powder and a birthday candle for Science Saturday, when I get a I'm just going to assume that applause is for how cute my kids are. So this is a very early concept, but the ideas are starting to take shape. Being able to connect with people both physically proximate to you and physically distant at the same time has the potential to tremendously broaden our capacity to connect with other people, especially if you can have access to all of your information without constantly having to check your phone. Mixed reality won't be ready for a while, but it is on our roadmap. We think it's a huge part of the next 5 years of virtual reality and an important step on the path to augmented reality. This work is bigger than Facebook. If you're sitting in the audience like I was a year ago, then you have been on this journey with us, probably longer than I have. And I hope you do take this opportunity to step back and remind yourself of the tremendous opportunity we have to impact the world. I really think this work is important to the future of human connection. And that's why Facebook is all in on solving these problems, and we hope that you are too. And with that, I'd like to introduce Hugo Barra to talk about our work in VR. Thank you.